I'll give you my title in just a minute. If you guys don't know what text we're in, then it's probably your first time. We're in Psalm 23, which we have been in for, 3 months? I'd like to tell you that we're on our last verse 6, but we're not. So we got a little while to go. But could I get a reader to read the entirety of Psalm 23 real quick for me? Go, Carissa.
Yes. I have to find it. I jumped the gun. Okay.
Oh.
No. Don't even worry about it. Watch this.
Anyone swoop in?
And we're here.
Anyone swoop in.
All right. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
So our last message was on verse 5. The message before that was on verse 4. I would actually like to pair both of those, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off the last two messages. So I do have an official title of this message, but I was briefly considering calling it Being a Sheep 102 or Being a Sheep 202, whatever comes next. I don't know. It's been a long time since school. But I do have a separate title for it. Let me start you off, though, with the premise that I have of what I'm going to share with you tonight, and I'll give you my title. If you were to try and summarize who God is based off of the two verses, verse 4 and verse 5, in a single word, what would you say? My sermons are never interactive, so y'all got to jump on this. This is like the only time.
Oh, this is actually...
What? It's a real question. If you were to summarize, who is God based on verse 4 and 5 in one word, what would you say?
Warrior.
Ooh, that's good. There's no wrong answers.
Protector.
Bingo.
Merciful.
Good.
Comforter.
Good.
Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Provider.
Oh, I was going to say it and you guys said it.
Yeah.
So good.
Did we just become best friends?
Best friends. So good. God is all of those, and he presents himself to be all of those things in these verses. There's one that really stands out to me. The first one I thought it was the second one Rob said. Protector.
Nice.
He's a protector. And you see this all through these verses. The psalmist is saying, when I'm walking through the valley of shadows, I don't fear evil because of his presence. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of the shadow because of his presence. He protects me from it. It says, your rod and your staff comfort me. Kiade talked about this a few weeks ago, but the rod is to beat back enemies.
Yeah.
And the staff is then to bring correction and redirection. The rod protects us from other things. The staff protects us from ourselves.
Ooh, yeah.
He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. So even if enemies are there, God gives us a feast. God is a protector. With him, you are safe.
Yeah.
And so I just got to make sure that everyone knows that right up here off the bat, that God is your protector. That God protects you no matter what you're facing, whether you're walking in the valley, when you're facing the shadows, whether you're facing real things, whether you're facing fears, whether you're surrounded by oppressors, whether you're hurting, whether the enemy is in your mind. God is your protector. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
God gives us safety. God gives us safety. What does that really mean, though? God gives us safety. You know, there's a phrase that gets tossed around a lot around here, and it has for a long time. And it's not a bad phrase, and I've said it myself many times, many times, and it's been a comfort and a reassurance to many people, and even maybe for some of you, it's kept you around here, you know, a little bit longer because you were told this and you believed it. And it's this. This is a safe space. This is a safe space.
Okay.
What does that really mean, though? What does it mean to be safe? I'm not trying to get all introspective and philosophical on us. Maybe I am, but I think there's something valuable about asking, hey, what do we really mean when we say this? Because if we're honest with each other, we can all take phrases or words that might mean a certain thing, and maybe it's true, but then we can misapply it because we're misunderstanding its actual meaning. Y'all ever done this?
Yes.
I know you have, because some of you have gotten yourselves in trouble before by calling someone else your best friend. And what they think best friend means is different than what you think best friend means, and you can't actually live up to what you said, what they think you said. Or maybe if you, or maybe in a relationship with your significant other, or even a good friendship, they tell you, hey, I want to spend quality time with you. And to you, that means, oh, we should watch a movie together. To them, that means we need to have an intimate one-on-one conversation and stare into each other's eyes. And neither of you are wrong. It's just different meanings. So we can take something that is simple to state, like, oh, yeah, that's true, but then add extra meaning on top of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can take these statements, God is my protector. God keeps me safe. This is a safe space. All of those are true, yeah. But if I assign my own parameters of meaning to these statements that don't end up being true because of what I said on them, then I fall into the lie of believing that the statement isn't true either.
Wow. Yeah.
Y'all with me?
Yes.
So here's the key for our community, for our house church in this time and season, right now, in regards to Psalm 23, verse 4 and 5, safety is not equivalent to the absence of danger.
That's true.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Safety doesn't necessarily mean there's no danger present, right? Like, we see this in the Psalm. Like, what's everything that's going on here? Shadows, death, enemies.
Yeah.
There's danger. My message title for you is Safe Space or Real Grace?
Oh, woo.
Safe space or real grace? You know what really stood out to me through this time? We've been studying Psalm 23 for a few months, and you know what really stood out to me? The danger.
Yeah.
The danger. Not just the presence of God, but the shadow of death. Not just the table, but the enemies.
Yeah.
Not just the rod that God is carrying, but the fact that God even needs to carry a rod.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be dark here, but like, do you realize that Psalm 23 paints this picture of David as the psalmist, in which he is praising God and he's glorifying God while simultaneously surrounded by enemies, by evil, and yes, by death. And if that doesn't sound like a safe space to you, then you probably don't really understand your good shepherd. God's your shepherd. He's your good shepherd. He keeps you safe. He's your protector. And you're safe in this room, and you're safe in this church. But don't forget this, y'all. Y'all aren't ready.
I'm ready.
We think that safety means that a predator won't enter the pasture, but that's not the promise. The promise is that the predator won't win.
That's true.
Right.
Y'all, I came to preach at 8:53 p.m. The trap that I see so many Jesus followers, just tripping into is this belief of a lie that because God is my protector, that there won't be any danger, that there's not going to be any hardships, that there's not going to be any oppression, that for sure better not be any enemies. We think that because God keeps us safe, that no predator is even going to come close. Of course there's not going to be a predator in the pasture. But never did God actually promise that. But we think, if God is my shepherd, then if he's leading me, then of course he's going to lead me away from enemies. Of course he's going to steer me clear of opposition. Of course he's going to keep me away from all that. He's going to keep me in this comfortable, safe pasture space. But that's us putting parameters on God's promise.
Yeah. Come on.
So I hope that it's not lost on you that David praises God for his presence while he's in the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah.
That he's thanking God for preparing a table while in the presence of his enemies. David is figuratively sitting at this king's feast, this table, this elaborate banquet for him while being surrounded by people that want to harm him.
Wow.
And so this shows me that God never promises the absence of danger. There's a promise of protection, but never a promise that there won't be nearby predators on the prowl. Actually, if anything, the Bible promises us that there are predators. That the devil is prowling around like a lion looking for someone to devour. There's danger around.
Yeah.
And the promise of God's protection is not equivalent to an absence of danger.
That's right.
And the promise So if that's true, then what is the promise? Well, the promise that you need to hold on to today is not that there won't be danger. It's not that there won't be predators. It's that the predators don't win.
Yeah.
It's that the predators don't take you out today.
Come on.
Yeah.
It's not a promise that they won't deal you some damage. Not a promise that they won't make you uncomfortable. Not that they won't alarm you or scare you or invade your safe space. Whew. It's that they won't win.
That's good.
Yeah.
Not today, devil. I don't die today.
Yeah.
They don't win.
Yeah.
For Christmas this year, my mom took a bunch of our home videotapes, and she took all these VHS tapes and she downloaded them digitally, and she sent all of her kids this little flash drive of a bunch of our home videos. And so last night, Mariah and I were watching some of them, and when I was a kid, for some reason, I really love to film myself. I love to make little movies, little scenes, like little one-man shows. So, whether it was like fake newscasts or a little like, I don't know. It was kind of, and it was pretty much just for me. I mean, no one was really watching it, but I was making these shows, and I would act out, Lord of the Rings scenes and all these skits. And I would do this thing. I had a rope swing in my backyard, and I would do this thing where it was like my rope swing show, and I would just film myself for hours. And I would be swinging, and I would talk to the camera like I was giving tutorials, like everyone has a rope swing in their backyard, like, okay, now I'm going to do this trick, this is how you do it. And it was always more or less the same thing. I was just swinging back and forth. And so we were watching some of this last night, and it's so cringy. But it's like 8-year-old Chris, and there's this clip we have, and I did that for hours and hours, and thankfully we don't have all of it. We just have a little bit of it. But there was this little clip we were watching, and I'm swinging, and I jump off the swing suddenly, and I run to the camera, and I like say like I'm talking to the audience. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta be right back because there's an emergency situation. And I turn the camera off. And then I probably went inside or something, but then the camera comes back on, and then I'm back in front of it, and I'm like, okay, I just had to leave for a second because I heard some guy in the yard next to me yelling, and he sounded really angry. And so I got scared because I heard someone like probably 100 feet away, and turned the camera off, and I probably packed it in and went inside for a minute, so I wasn't scared anymore, and I came back out. And I know, like, okay, Chris, you were a little kid. We know it wasn't a big deal that someone was yelling in another yard that wasn't even your yard. But how often is this how Christians live our lives? You see a threat, or you feel opposition, or you hear something that makes you uncomfortable, and you pack it in and pack it out. Emergency, I'm out.
Emergency.
And it doesn't even matter that God has placed a fence of protection in between that threat and you. It's still too close. Like that was saying, it's still too close. It doesn't matter that it's a fence away, maybe 2 yards away. I hear something that's scary. I'm dipping because it's now invaded my space. It's now something that isn't even related to me, is really no threat to me, but I perceived it as a threat that has now invaded what I have determined to be my safe space. So, safe space or real grace. What is it that we're actually promised when it comes to safety? I think about Daniel. I think about the prophet Daniel, who made this choice to not bow down to an earthly king, to not worship an idol. He made a choice to stay committed to his God.
Yes.
And he paid the punishment of essentially being executed. Of course, we know the story. He didn't die. They tried to execute him by throwing him into a pit of lions. And they found him alive and well the next morning. Why? Not because God removed the lions from the pit.
That's right. Come on.
But the scripture says that God closed their mouths so that they couldn't attack him.
Right.
God doesn't remove the lions. God doesn't actually take the threat. The threat stays. And Daniel sits all night with the threat by his side, but God keeps it from harming him. And I think maybe we need to adjust our understanding of what God keeping us safe really means. Rob taught last week, and he compared verse 5 of this psalm within David's context of his life, and he compared it in David's life and also Jesus' life and in our lives as well. And it was this beautiful comparison between these different narratives. And he made a great point that for David, the enemies were actual people. When David's talking about his enemies, it's usually real people. It's warriors from another nation that want to kill him, or even people within his own kingdom. David, unfortunately, had 2 different sons betray him at different incidents in his life, so not great. So yeah, he had enemies. David had enemies in his life. But Rob reminded us that our enemies, in general, are not physical or carnal, but generally are spiritual. And our enemy is a spirits that are trying to distract us, trying to divert us, trying to harm us, trying to take us away from our mission, our calling, our purpose of bringing more people to the kingdom of God and the truth of Jesus Christ. And this isn't really my main point tonight, but it's hard not to talk about this, that our misunderstanding of God's protection, of the way that he's supposed to keep us safe, it has some of us just absolutely shook when we face spiritual opposition.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to downplay anyone's opposition that you might be facing or what you might be fighting in your life, but it's just surprising to me how many of us are so shook. We are so surprised and thrown off when we face attack from the enemy. And when we face hardships, when we face spiritual oppressions, when we face battles, we'll be like, man, I had the bad dreams again last night. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I'm like, well, like, who said you're doing anything wrong?
Right.
Or we'll be like, man, I've just been feeling so tempted lately. It feels like God isn't even near. It's like, well, wait, why? Oh, so you thought because God was your safety that there weren't going to be any devils around? Like, oh, you thought because God's your protector that there's not going to be any enemies, there's not going to be any spirits coming against you? Like, no, not. We're not to that place yet. They're still around. There's still opposition. There's still enemies. For now, God's protection in your life, it doesn't mean that you don't have to do battle. It just means that you have the upper hand.
Yes.
And every time you do battle, you can win.
Yes.
Come on.
But let's, I'm actually not trying to talk about evil spirits tonight. Let's talk about people.
Yeah.
Because this word, we're talking about how for David it was probably people. And this word from the Hebrew, for my enemies, what David says, my enemies, it can be a lot more broad than just a physical warrior or an enemy or someone actually trying to hurt you or kill you, because most of us aren't really encountering that situation. But it can actually be translated as broadly as just someone who is showing hostility or someone who is vexing us or harassing us. Okay, and a lot of us experience that. And so here I come now to the main point of what I want to say tonight. The main point of this message is this. It's that the Church of Jesus Christ is meant to fulfill its mission in the presence of enemies, not the absence of them.
Oh, man. Come on.
And that the bride of Christ, the church, is not promised an existence free of hostility or hostile people. Never is our promise of God as our protector the same as there will never be hostile people around you. And the gospel of Jesus is not meant to circulate among the same like-minded people who don't ever oppose or threaten or make each other uncomfortable. So I teased this in the intro a little bit, but let's go back to it. Is your house church, is the living room a safe space? Is this a safe space? Well, it depends. It depends on how you define it. So, do you have a voice and a place of input where you can express your ideas and needs and be heard and provided for? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Are you amongst people in this room who want to get to know you, who want to do life with you, who are actually interested in knowing you and investing in you? Yes, absolutely, yes. Are there pastors here who genuinely care about you and care about seeing you move forward in what God has for you and move forward in the ways of God? Yeah, for sure. None of us get a paycheck, so we have no other reason to do it. Yes. Do we promise that there won't be people who oppose you, who try and stir up drama, or who may come into this room with bad intentions? No, can't promise that. Can't promise any of that. Can I assure you that there'll never be people you don't like? No. People who don't rub you the wrong way, people who don't offend you, people who don't say something to you you don't like, people who don't handle their relationship with you in a healthy way. Can't promise that either. And I don't know about you, but when I think of a safe space, that can be a little bit of a problem for me. Because if I think of a safe space, I think of a place where there's no threats, there's no hostilities. Like, if I want to hang out in a safe space, then I'm not going to be hanging out with anyone that I don't like, or let alone that doesn't like me. And I'm sorry to tell you, though, that if that's your definition of a safe space, the living room is probably not a safe space for you. Because this is not a place that we close ourselves off to what we might deem to be risky people. This is not a place where we're going to just ignore the ones we don't like. This is not a place where we give preferential treatment to the ones we don't understand. This is not a doors closed club that doesn't allow access to someone that we don't trust yet, or that we haven't gotten to know, or whose intentions we're not sure about. A church that hides in their safe space is a church that doesn't live real grace.
Yeah, that's good.
A church that chooses to just hide in the safety of a room or the safety of a building and not venture outside the walls to what they deem risky and not allow potential threats through the doors is not living in real grace. So maybe your mission as a Jesus follower isn't to live in a safe space. Maybe it's to live grace. And living grace is risky. It's risky and it's dangerous. Okay, we're talking about, it involves being vulnerable of yourself and letting yourself be exposed and seen and expressing needs in ways that maybe you would prefer people didn't know, and putting yourself out there on the line into the hands of someone that you might not really know or fully trust yet. It's scary. It means embracing people we don't understand. It means opening our doors to people that aren't like us. And if I was really honest with myself, I hope y'all are down to be honest. If I was really honest about what I wanted in my community to be, I would want it to be full of people just like me. Like people that think like me, people that act like me, things that I like, people that sound like me. You know, not the people that make me uncomfortable, not the people that challenge my perceptions, not people that disrupt my prejudices. But see, that's not the family of God.
That's right.
And so if that's your definition and your longing of a safe space, then the family of God is just really not going to work out for you. And so we might think about, I want to be safe. I want to be in this family unit. And without thinking about it, that's, what we might think we want. Oh, people like me. It's just not how it works. It's just not who we're supposed to be. It's just not what we're called to build. And if this is challenging for you, then we go all the way right back to Psalm 23. And we remember why we were ever safe in the first place. God is my protector. And why is God my protector? Not because there's an absence of danger, but because he has power over every danger. He's my protector with a rod against everyone who would do me harm. And so I hope you love the people here. I hope you love your house church. I hope you feel safe here. I really do. But you aren't safe here because the people around you make you safe.
That's right.
But because your Father does.
That's right.
Man, if you don't get anything else, and I get that, we can call this a safe space, and yes, it is. I hope it is. I hope everyone in here is safe in this room. But it's not because of us.
That's right.
And let's not ever live under this grand illusion that we have built a place that is going to be perfect for people, or that we are able to keep them safe from harm, or that we are not even ever going to mess up and offend someone or hurt someone. I cannot promise that I will never hurt or offend or disappoint any of you. It's just impossible. We are not a safe space on our own.
That's so good.
And we're not safe because of how much we love each other or our own efforts. It's only because of the Father.
Yeah.
And this really brings us back a lot of ways into what I said before during worship, in which, man, it's so valuable in the time that you spend with God. Because that's where you receive what you need, not just amongst people.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only safe space you really have. It's not with your friends. It's with your Father.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only safe space. So what does this mean for us? Let me close this. What does this mean for us? That we need to stop telling people that they're safe in here? No, I really hope that no one walked away with that message. Because we can keep saying that, we can keep telling people that, and that's a helpful thing. But maybe some of us need to adjust our concept of what a safe space really is, and what our church community really is. And quite frankly, this is really a word for those of us that have been around a while, and who really come to call this place home, and have a sense of belonging here and ownership over this room. And maybe we need to adjust what we really believe, and adjust right now. If you don't know this about me, I actually really like movies. And I know I don't like watch movies when we're hanging out, but I like watching movies by myself. And I've been watching it's just a weird thing. I've been watching some Leo movies. I've been watching through pretty much all of Leonardo DiCaprio's movies. And I watched this old Leo movie called The Beach. Don't recommend it, but I did watch it, and it was pretty weird. Anyway, I'm trying to watch them all, so I watched this movie. Basically, Leo's this young kid who travels to Thailand, and he goes to this beach, this like amazing like reclusive place, and he finds this community of hippies living out there, and they've got this own community, and they have this secret little society where they all just live and they're self-sustained, but they're secretive. They're tight-knit, they're family, but they're secretive. And the leader of this community is really paranoid about their secret getting out, about anyone finding out where they are. And I was watching this movie, and just, I guess the pastor in me, the house church pastor in me, is watching this movie and watching this character be so paranoid about her community changing. And I wanted to, like, talk to her. I wanted to jump in the movie and be like, and I was thinking, you know, if I was Leo, I want to sit down with her and be like, look, I know you really love what you have. The thing is, not everything lasts forever.
Yeah.
And as good as this is, if you spend so much time being paranoid about it changing, you're going to hold it with such a tight grip that if something changes, you won't be able to adapt, and you're going to do something really dumb. And of course, that's exactly what happens in the movie. She does something really dumb, and it all falls apart. And I've seen, we've been doing this house church for a while now, and I've seen many times in this group in which something really good is happening, and the group is really tight-knit. And the people in the group, unintentionally, I believe, sometimes start to get this focus of like, man, this is so good, we just got to keep it how it is. And whenever I hear that and see that, I'm always a little cautious with that worry of like, hey, let's be careful, because we're not actually ever supposed to stay the same.
That's right.
Nor are we ever supposed to close our doors.
Yeah.
So we have a philosophy in house church that we don't ever max out.
Yeah.
We don't ever close the doors because it's too many people, and if y'all been around, you know, so it's gotten uncomfortable in here in the past. We don't do that. We multiply. We start new house churches when we need to, but we don't close our doors.
Yep.
We don't cap out. But I think the risk is when something's going really good, whether we realize it or not, sometimes we can actually close ourselves off to anyone that might be coming in from the outside.
Yeah.
Maybe anyone that seems to pose a risk. Anyone that seems to pose a threat to what we have. Anyone who doesn't immediately seem to fit in, we write off. Anyone that might seem kind of hostile, maybe they have bad intentions, maybe they have different intentions. And quite frankly, that's just not how the church is supposed to work. That's just not who we're supposed to be. And I'm telling you right now that that's not the kind of church the living room is going to be. I'm telling you right now, that's not who we're going to be.
That's good. Yeah.
It's not who we are. Now, let me be clear as I'm closing this out. I'm never saying, I'm not saying that we should just let hostility, let rudeness, let gossip, or anything like that run unchecked. Okay, so I'm not saying that's going to happen. And as one of the leaders of the past this year, I can assure you that that's not our intention, nor will that happen. Anyone who enters our community and is divisive and is gossiping and is hurting other people, okay, is going to be checked. And if they continue, is going to be asked to leave. Okay, that's just how it's going to work. And so I'm not saying that, we can all just oppress each other and hurt each other and it's cool. No. We're going to protect each other. But at the end of our day, part of our mission as Jesus followers and as this house church is to be open to everyone who walks through the doors. Is to be open and to be receptive and welcoming of everyone. And as great as it is to be together, and as great as it is to be friends with each other and to do life together, that's actually not what it's all about. It's actually not just about each other. It's about everyone. It's about everyone. It's about anyone that comes into this room and anyone who comes into our group. This means welcoming every risk. This means stepping out into risk.
Yeah.
This means stepping out into danger. Even if it means being vulnerable with each other, even if it means being vulnerable with people in the room that you haven't gotten to know yet. Maybe there's 10 new people and you don't want to speak up. It means being vulnerable.
Yeah.
It means opening up, sharing about ourselves, and reaching out even the people that we maybe don't know yet or don't trust yet, and building that relationship. Y'all with me?
Yes.
And so this is who we're called to be. Is this a safe space? Yes. But at the end of the day, what we're actually called is to live in grace,
Yes.
to take risks, to open the doors to people that may harm. And yeah, we'll have each other's backs. Yeah, we'll protect each other. Yeah, we'll pray for each other. Yeah, we'll support. But it's not just about us anymore. That's what we signed up for. And so now we can walk amongst hostilities, and we can walk amongst enemies, and we can sit in the presence of people who would rather harm us, people who we know have gossiped about us, people who we don't trust, people who were rude to us last week, and we can sit in the presence, and we can still enjoy the table that God prepared.